All right, everybody, welcome. It is Wednesday. I hope you're safe wherever you may be. And we want to welcome you to our panel event focused on finding a job in tech. With tech coming into the forefront during the pandemic, you might be wondering how to break in and get that job. If at the top of your mind, you've come to the right panel webinar. Leading this webinar tonight is Albert's List moderator, Elisa Huang. She's a business solutions director at Sodexo, responsible for new sales and group purchasing segment, Integra Procurement Services. She's also a moderator for Albert's List, having worked with many job seekers to help them land interviews, prepare resumes, as well as get the career resources they need to thrive. We're going to go ahead and record this presentation tonight. It'll actually be available on YouTube, the video coming in from our Facebook feed. So check our YouTube in a couple of days. I'll have it in there and I'll message you all for it. And then we'll also be answering questions in the duration of this as well. So please be engaged in the chat or the Q&A and we'll get to you. And we hope that everything you learned today will be of value to your breaking into tech. Elisa, I'm going to hand it over to you and let you get started.
Awesome. Hey, everyone. I'm so excited just to join and be here with everyone tonight. And I'm really excited about our speaker tonight. Just going to give a brief intro. He's someone that I relate to, and I'm sure many others as well relate to on many levels, is just someone who's able to have mastered the tech space, not having a pre-existing network or any kind of financial support available. He was able to land several offers at all the top tech companies like the FANG companies, Google, Facebook. We always, a lot of our job seekers list, despite coming from a non-technical background, which we get a lot of those requests as well. Jazib Khan, he's a career expert. He helps thousands break into top blue chip companies and provide a lot of career strategy in navigating the job search. He currently works as a digital account executive at Amazon. And just like Albert was saying, we want to make sure that this webinar is very informative. Jazib and I are going to go over some questions, but if you have any, feel free to just pop it into the chat room, or Albert, I don't know if you're able to have people come off mute, but we want to make it so that it's very informative and real-time feedback dialogue. So please don't be shy, no questions off the table. And with that, I'll actually kick it to Jazib and see if he has anything else he'd like to add before we go into kind of a lightning round.
Yeah, for sure. Right before we get into that, I think I'll give a bit more context behind it all and how it even came into fruition. So hey everybody, my name is Jazib. Again, like Elisa said, I'm currently working as a digital account executive at Amazon within sales. So long story short, I'm dealing with the book of business within the advertising side. So I have 10 clients. They're advertising on Amazon. My responsibility is to cater to their needs and provide advertising solution recommendations to them. So that's what I do on a day-to-day basis. Before coming down to Amazon, I was actually working on the CPG side of things. So I was working at Procter & Gamble P&G, where I was also within sales. But as you can see, you're able to break into these tech companies, even coming from a non-technical background. So when I was at P&G, I decided, hey, you know what? I want to break into tech, and I want to switch over into tech. At first, I didn't know exactly what the process would look like, what I would do. Didn't have a LinkedIn network. Again, didn't have the connections there. And in the beginning, when I first tried mass applying with my resume, wasn't seeing much luck in the first few weeks. And again, this was in the prime time of COVID back in March 2020. Wasn't seeing that much success with just applying. And then I started getting a bit more creative. So I spent the next 90 days pretty much going through like a full job seeking funnel. And through that process, learned a lot of really cool, neat tricks that helped me land over 42 interviews across these top blue chip companies like Google, Facebook, Amazon, Salesforce, Tesla, you name it. And getting to the final rounds, getting a few offers as well. But I couldn't have done it without some of the key tips that I'm going to be sharing today. So I'm super excited to be here. And Elisa, feel free to kick it off with the lightning round and questions.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so glad you brought that up, because I think a lot of people struggle with just I don't know, not having like a warm referral into one of the tech companies or not having a tech background, how do you it's sort of daunting if you applying for it because you spend all this time customizing your resume and then you apply thinking you'll hear back and then it just sort of goes into unconstructed black space. Like you're like, oh, I thought I was like a winner, right? And then you don't hear anything back. And there's many reasons for that. So I guess the first one would be, so our cover title is Creatively Breaking into Tech. What does that look like? And so in some respects, I'm hoping you can maybe just give us tip of the iceberg, like what is your secret sauce or like what does that look like? And maybe that means like sharing, how did you first land your offer with a FANG company?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm going to talk about a few different cool techniques. And again, so getting into a tech company, first and foremost, doesn't mean you have to come from a technical background. So for example, I come from a sales background, doesn't require for me to know anything on the tech side of things or being a software developer or anything of that sort. So there's a lot of non-technical roles. So there's sales, there's marketing, there's product marketing and product manage. So if you're not doing technical product management, there's product management that you can get into and project management at these big tech companies. So that's one way you can break into tech. Another way is certifications. So let me give you a very cool example. I have one of my really good friends. His name is Christian. And he used to be a photographer, I believe like 3 or 4 years ago. And he decided, you know what, I'm going to break into tech. And the way he went about it was he did a boot camp for data science. And he initially got into Warner Media. And through that, he went to Nike as a data scientist. And then he went to or he's currently working at Sony PlayStation as a data scientist. And again, he was a photographer, didn't come from a technical background, did a 4-month boot camp, and that really helped him accelerate his career within tech. Now, if you ask what my secret sauce was, and Elisa, if you don't mind, is it okay if I share my screen and I just
No,
show
please,
everybody?
we want to get into details.
I'm going to show everybody firsthand pretty much what my secret sauce was. In landing all these job interviews and these referrals and so on and so forth. So let me start sharing my screen. Let me know once you can see it. Okay, so are you able to see my screen?
You're good.
Okay, so a lot of the things that we're going to be talking about today is on LinkedIn. So I made LinkedIn my bread and butter. So again, something that I didn't have in the past. This is just me having my account for now a year, like me actually putting in effort within my LinkedIn profile for around a year and a half, I would say, at this point, coming from pretty much not having a LinkedIn profile whatsoever. So first and foremost, having an optimized LinkedIn profiles. I know Elisa and I are going to be walking through a few different takeaways of things that we can do on LinkedIn to optimize it. But for now, let me show you all a very cool and neat trick that I used in landing pretty much almost every single one of my interviews came through this method. So if everybody's watching, make sure that you're paying attention. So the first thing that I did was, let's say I'm up here, I will search the key term of hiring and then account executive. So account executive is the role that I want to get into. Normally what people do is they go into people. Instead, I'm going to go into posts. Now what I'm looking at is those 3 keywords, hiring, account executive, within people's posts. So the next step, what you can do is now I can sort by, I want to see the latest ones. I want to be the first one there as soon as somebody makes a post that they're hiring for an account executive role. So now I'm seeing the latest posts. I want to take it one step further. I want to filter by the companies that I want to work at. I want to work at Google, or this is what I was doing. So I wanted to work at Google. I wanted to work at Facebook, Amazon. By the way I got my role was exactly through this method. And alongside all those other 40 plus interviews was through this method. So you can continue adding on companies. So let's just leave it off at that. So now I'm going to show my results. So what I've entered my keywords. I've filtered to latest, and now I filtered by the author companies, or like people who work at these companies who have made the post with the words hiring, account executive. And basically what I would do every single day, I would do the search, and every day there would be new posts coming up. And look, like there's people already 1 hour ago, this particular person has posted for an account representative role at Amazon. So now this is somebody that wants to be reached out to because they're making a post on LinkedIn. So this is a significantly more targeted approach when you're job searching and you're trying to find jobs. So like another one over here, Delphina hiring for an account executive opportunity at Google. And then again, if you just keep scrolling down, people are posting roles, and the hiring managers and the recruiters themselves are posting these roles, and you can reach out to them, and we will be walking through some best practices on what to say to these people once, hey, I've identified somebody, what should I say to them in order for them to even give me a chance? Yeah, that's my secret sauce.
Okay, so basically like you're looking for these posts, and then do you just reach out to them directly, like add them or in mail or whatnot? And
so yeah, so you have two options. If you don't have LinkedIn Premium, then the best route is doing a personalized invite, of which I can also walk through what a good personalized invite would look like. And then the alternative route is, if you do have LinkedIn Premium, then you can do the in-mail.
okay, yeah, I mean, let's go into that. Just, I think a lot of people have a hard time with that, in the sense that not everyone has like sales or navigator or premium, and they'll just click connect, and then maybe they never hear anything back, or they'll comment on the post and then they'll just get a like, but then it doesn't really go anywhere. So what is like a template, or like, what would you say is a format of a thought out way that actually gets a response?
So for those who don't know, I am also the founder of Tech and Chill. It's basically a platform that's also helping others get into tech. And this is where myself, recruiters and hiring managers have consolidated messages or networking outreach templates that they can use. So for different scenarios, we have different types of templates. So for example, let's say, like you're mentioning, a LinkedIn personalized invite. What would that look like? And we've got a bunch of different types of templates depending on who you're reaching out to. If you're reaching out to a recruiter, a good template would be like, hey, name, I read from your profile that you recruit for industry. I'm currently doing this role at this company and wanted to connect with you in case you think my profile might be a good fit for current or future roles you seek to fill. By the way, at least I'm more than happy to provide these templates as well as something to pass on to the folks that are listening, or they can access it through techandchill.io.
Okay.
So yeah, pardon me?
Real quick, going to techandchill.io, because I know some people were saying like, okay, I need an invite, or is there like a pricing built into it? Could you just kind of briefly?
So there's two ways. So there's two parts of the platform. So we have the free aspect of the platform where we do like job postings, and there's networking events and so on and so forth. And then there are premium hubs. So like Career Hacks, Landing Your Next Job is a premium hub where there is also, by the way, a free trial. So people can get onto the free trial, see how it is. We have exclusive job postings within here. We have exclusive premium resources like resume templates that normally cost like $50 to $100 in here. And it's for the price of like a Starbucks latte. But yeah, so that's an alternative route that people can use. However, I'm also more than happy to pass along this information over to you, Elisa, in regards to the templates that I'll be sharing right now.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. And we'll make sure to make that available. Okay, I would love to take a step back, because I mean, I love your career journey where you said, okay, you're working at Procter & Gamble, you were in sales, and then you contemplated moving into tech. Now, and you're lucky in the sense that you have had a little bit more of a focused approach on like where you'd like to go. Can you share any insights for folks like breaking into tech in the first place? How would you suggest for folks that are in the infancy of it? How can they pick a career, all that? Like, what does that look like? That thought process look like, so to speak?
So when I initially started off by, wanting to break into tech, my question was, okay, why would I want to be breaking into tech? Right. So for me personally, I was somebody who really likes, like, I'm like a computer junkie. I'm a tech junkie. So that was one aspect of it. I had very strong sales experience. I love tech. And I also have a very strong passion within startups. So personally for me, I'm somebody who wants to, if you ever take a look at my LinkedIn, I've launched a few startups. My main goal overall in the next 5 to 10 years is to have a startup of my own that I'm running, exclusively. And there are a few characteristics that these big tech companies offer that I normally wouldn't get by me just doing a startup on my own. So getting leadership skills and improving my communication skills. Believe it or not, I actually had major stage fright back in university, where I never in my life thought, one, I would be within a sales role, or two, be able to speak in front of a crowd or a group of people. So I put myself in an uncomfortable situation simply because, hey, you know what? I eventually want to be the founder of my own startup and have that running exclusively. In order to do so, I need to gain a communication skill set. I need to be working at a tech company because I want to be within the tech space. And the reason I want to be within the tech space is because tech companies currently are in a hyper growth phase. If you take a look at back in, let's say, I believe, let's say the 1950s, the thing that was in and the place to be was being within, let's say, the banking industry. In the 1980s, there was more investment banking. Since the 2000s, it has been the tech industry, and we're currently in a time period where the tech industry is booming. And the reason it's booming is because we're making online, softwares and things, with on the internet and digitally, that don't really require a lot of upfront costs or like asset costs and so on and so forth. So the effort that, let's say, I'm putting in as somebody within sales within a tech company, let's say for every 1 hour, let's say I'm giving theoretical numbers, but the return that the company is getting in terms of revenue is significantly a lot more. Whereas if you're in like a traditional, let's say, banking role right now, you're usually getting a 1-to-1 ratio or 1-to-1 output on what you're doing. So right now we're in the phase where the tech industry is within a hyper growth phase. The next thing I would assume is AI and machine learning falls under tech, but it's more of a niche part of tech. Cybersecurity is another one, very great place to be in. So when you start job seeking, it's really important to start thinking of, okay, where are these industries going to be in the next 10 to 15 years? Am I going to have a job within this space in the next 5 to 10 years?
Okay, that's super helpful. That was actually going to be kind of the follow-up question, like, because I know you've been in the space for a while, and we always, bubble, let's work in tech in one big giant lump. And the follow-up was going to be like, what do you feel are hot industries in that space right now? Like industries, so on and so forth. I always think of cyber, cryptocurrency, and then like my personal connection is fintech.
Yeah.
But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, fintech is on the, so I'll start off with some roles that are really in, and then I'll start off with the industries and then some of the roles.
That's perfect. Thanks.
But yeah, fintech is in, let's see, we have digital or so ad tech is in, educational tech is in. So kind of like Skillshare is an example platform of an educational technology where it's kind of like what we're doing, but not really in the tech space. It's more so within, let's say, if you want to learn how to be a photographer, if you want to learn how to be a videographer, there's educational tech companies like that. AI and machine learning, definitely something that's going to be very well needed, or is currently very well needed. Virtual reality is another one. And then I think one more would be, again, cybersecurity is really in right now. And in terms of roles that are doing really well, especially as of late, obviously, so software engineering, there's a big need for software engineers. UI UX design is really in right now. Product management is really in, and then just to give an idea of what product management is, it's basically carrying out, let's say, a new feature from ideation to execution, more of like a project management role, but in the sense of finalizing and creating that product. Those are a few roles. One thing that's really in right now is data science. So basically using programs or technical skills like Tableau or Microsoft Power BI that allows you to create data visualizations of big data and making insights from big data. That's really in right now, especially making with these big tech companies needing a lot of data and utilizing the data to make better and better decisions and improving their their machine learning and AI systems that they have in the back end.
That's awesome. Okay, I just want to kind of roadmap and set it for everyone because you unpacked a lot of goodies there. So just for those in the line that are interested in breaking into tech, kind of a systematic approach is, well, first, if you don't know what career or where you're looking at, like Jaza provided a couple of hot industries, and we'll make sure that that's included in the recap. But some of the ones that I heard is EdTech, Skillshare, FinTech, VR, AR, cybersecurity, which just doubling back to that Skillshare, what's the name? Can you think of an example of how many? For some reason, I keep thinking of like Udemy or something like that.
Oh, Udemy is also EdTech. Yeah. Coursera is EdTech.
Coursera.
So like that's where you get like courses and certifications. Really, really great place if you're pivoting from, let's say, one area of tech to another, or coming from a non-technical background. If you want to gain technical skills, highly, highly, highly recommend doing, let's say, a Coursera course. If you're trying to get into, let's say, data science or whatever it may be. But yeah, Coursera, Udemy, edX, and I'll put them down in the chat right now as well.
Yeah, that would be great. And then I just thought of another one, General Assembly, GA is pretty good. And just to what Jobs was saying, like, for example, if you, I don't know, like, let's say you're in collections or whatever, you're in a completely different professional career and you want to become a UI UX designer, you can literally go to GA and do their full boot camp and land your job coming out of it, because that's how strong the program is. So he's gonna, I know he said he's gonna, oh yeah, tech.mile, Coursera, Udemy, yeah. GA is another one. So we'll make sure to include that in the recap. There's some questions in the chat. Just want to make sure we address it. Paula asked, is tech and chill also open to people looking for non-tech roles within the tech field? Yeah. Yes,
it is. So right now we've launched only the career hack section, which has, let's say, the resume templates, and it has, the outreach. So ATS friendly resume templates, outreach templates, referral strategies, LinkedIn optimization from top to bottom, things like that. But we are also releasing other hubs like the sales hub and the product. So like next week, for example, we're releasing our product management hub, where specifically tailored to product management. How do you break into product management resumes, product management interview questions and answers at these top tech companies, and so on and so forth. So we're slowly, again, we just launched less than a month ago, and we're slowly giving all these different hubs, and it's all inclusive of the Tech and Chill package. So right now we're expanding from the career hacks to sales and product management. And so then we have software engineering coming up, UI, UX, data science, and so on and so forth.
Awesome. And then going back to Tammy, she said, in your advice, is it highly recommended to join LinkedIn Premium, the feature of making that connection to the hiring manager? I think it's the in-mails that we talk about. And then also her follow-up is, where are you seeing the big job search hiring?
So personally for me, so although I do have LinkedIn Premium, I don't have it for that particular purpose. I could have been just as sufficient without it, because the strategy that I used was, hey, you know what, doing that LinkedIn hack method where I do this, or I call it my LinkedIn golden hack, where you do the search method and you go into the posts. I would add, using a personalized invite, each person, so that I can send them a longer email or a more detailed message once they've accepted my connection request. So I wouldn't say it's mandatory, but you do get, let's say you'll get 15, I believe, in-mail credits if you do have premium.
Gotcha. Okay. And then her other question was, where are you seeing the big hiring surge in sales? I know we talked about AE roles. I feel like, I don't know, I see a lot of new business developer roles.
If you're so these tech companies usually want, if you're trying to get into an AE or an AM role, these tech companies are usually looking for those who come from an existing, tech sales background. So even for me, for example, I had to get into an entry-level sales role at Amazon. So basically, if you're trying to get into into sales or an accounting or AE or an AM role, usually there's two ways to go about it. There's SDR, or three ways. There's sales development representative, and to be honest, they pretty much mean the same thing. There's SDR, sales development representative. There's MDR, market development representative, and then there's BDR, business development representative. And some of these tech companies, they might have differentiation between the three, but they're very, very close to one another. And long story short, what it is they want people initially being very scrappy, being people who can utilize, let's say, LinkedIn or different scrappy methods of acquiring a new customer. So maybe you might get a list of leads and your responsibility is to email those list of leads or reach out to them on LinkedIn. And that's usually how the beginning of a sales career looks like within tech. And then from SDR, MDR, or BD or BDR, you then level up to either an AM, account manager, or an AE, account executive. Account executive is more, you might have less accounts, existing relationships and existing businesses that you are currently dealing with that are already sold into the product. Now you're just managing that relationship, cross-selling and upselling with the client.
Okay, that's really helpful. I know one of the other ones was on Tech and Chill. Do we have to sign up for premium to get access? I know like you showed a couple of templates. Is that available just in the regular free version?
Those are not available within the regular version, so that would require premium, but there is a trial that you can go in and see what there is to offer, and you can cancel the trial if you are not interested after a month.
Gotcha. And then I just saw, thank you, Tammy, for being so active in the chat. She was talking about, just her own job experience in applying for AE roles, not having SaaS or tech background. So it sounds like, and then just what I'm hearing is, like you said, a couple ways to get started, but one might just be taking a lateral or maybe even a step back, an entry level role, just to kind of get into some kind of a sales role within the tech career.
Yeah.
Like, and I want to make that very candid, like, what does that involve? Like maybe it involves taking a decrease in salary, et cetera. Could you share a little bit more about like what that kind of connection might look like?
Yeah, for sure. So there are some scenarios where you may need to step down for the longer picture. Especially if you're pivoting from one side of things, or like let's say you're pivoting from, I know I have a few friends who pivot from, like, say, engineering to sales, for example. You sometimes do need to take a step down, but ultimately it is worth it in doing so. Personally, for me, again, I did also come from a non-technical background. And again, Tammy, you mentioned that you did get rejected. I got rejected a countless number of times. So just to put it into perspective for you, I've applied to Amazon 20 times, got rejected 17 times, had 3 interview full loops, and I ultimately got in after the 3rd loop. So one thing is that it does require a fair bit of persistence and a lot of time and effort that you're putting into it. Beyond Amazon, I've also gotten rejected. I've gotten offers and rejections from the same company. So I've gotten an offer from Facebook, but I've also gotten several rejections from Facebook, for example. So if you did get a rejection, that I would say, rejection is redirection. So definitely, keep at it. If you look at a job description, you're like, what, this is something that I can actually do. And that was the position that I was in. I was like, what, like I look at these job descriptions and they don't really seem too far out of my reach. And I feel like I have the skill set to do so. If you feel that way, I say it's more about your positioning. And that's we're going to be talking a bit more about like how to position yourself, how to position your LinkedIn profile, some key things that you can do to actually stand out. And instead of you reaching out to recruiters reaching out to you, because you've done all the right things in terms of optimizing your LinkedIn and doing all the right things within the job search.
Awesome. So, and we're focusing a lot on that because there's a lot of folks that are non-tech trying to get into it. Are there any sort of specific companies that you feel are most receptive to that jump in terms of taking a gander on hiring someone that's non-tech? I don't know, any insider info?
These companies actually want people who come from non-technical backgrounds. So for example, I came from a CPG background. When I was interviewing at Amazon, one of the reasons that they gave me is, CPG. So CPG is more like the physical version of Amazon's business. So like I had a lot of really good knowledge on the retail side. That was something that most of their folks who come from a technical background didn't really have. So I had something different to offer. So if you are coming from a non-technical background, you are still coming with something that other folks who have only stayed within tech don't have. So for example, let's say you're in the fashion industry. These tech companies, for example, like Facebook and like Google and they also have particular verticals within their companies that is tailored to fashion. So if you have passions, so for example, I have a personal passion within gaming, and like I'm a huge car junkie. So when I first started off at Amazon, they put me on the automotive book of business because I mainly called out, hey, I really like cars. So they found like an overlap between my experience and a vertical that they do have that overlaps with it. So you can get very creative. And to be honest, it's all about storytelling. And just to give you one more example on storytelling, when I was interviewing at Amazon for a digital account executive role, which by the way, I come from no advertising background, and this role did require an advertising background.
Mhm.
The way I talked about it was, hey, you know what? I don't know digital advertising, but I do know physical advertising because when I was working at P&G, we were talking about buying front page ads and flyer ads and doing in-store marketing executions. And my responsibility was to calculate, what are good or high return on investment opportunities on that front. And digital ads are pretty much the same thing with different metrics and different measures of success. So finding those overlaps, even if you're coming from a non-technical background, even if you're coming from a different background from the roles that you're targeting, there are significant opportunities at these tech companies in those sub verticals where they are looking for people who come with a different opinion or a different approach.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I love that. So it sounds like, okay, just for those that are listening, transferable skills is huge. And I would make sure to update your resume accordingly as well. Like if you don't have digital advertising experience, physical advertising would rise to the top. So it sounds like you capitalized on a little bit of both, and that made you a competitive candidate.
Another thing that I did was I went onto the Amazon, Google, and Facebook website, and they had advertising certifications that took 1 hour. So I would get those certifications, which literally take 1 or 2 hours, put it up on my LinkedIn, and now it's like beefing up my LinkedIn to look like, hey, this guy did a digital advertising certification at Google.
Awesome. Anyhow, we could probably go on for like several hours about this. I know a lot of people really, they've like tried every which way, right? So I feel like you're kind of giving a blueprint for how to maybe go about it in a more systematic approach. So we have a lot of questions in the chat, and I had a whole bunch too, but like I'm gonna let the chat room pretty much take over. So one of the ones in the chat DMs is like, you mentioned this idea of storytelling. And I mean, I guess the thought behind that is, are there certain stories that resonate the most? I have my own thought on this. Like, I think you should be very personalized. I love what you said about you love cars. So they were able to tie that into the automotive vertical. Do you feel like there's a certain way to do it? So I know for Amazon interviews, a lot of people talk about using like the cars method. Do you have any insight on like what storytelling might look like? What was successful for you in getting that offer?
Yeah, for sure. So for any of these big tech companies, they usually all follow the same format. So it's either called a CAR or STAR format. So CAR means context, action, and result. And STAR is just like it's instead of context, it's situation. It adds task, action, and then result. So there's CAR and STAR. So these methods are pretty much best practice for answering interview questions. Best practices run through situation, task, action, result. So it allows you to keep yourself very concise, clear and concise. And then the second thing, the second part of your question was basically, okay, so how, when applying to these companies, how should you go about, your storytelling? And to me personally, the way storytelling comes in a lot of different forms. So like one part of your story is like your resume and your LinkedIn profile. So if you go and let's say take a look at my about section, my about section not anymore. Now that I'm not job seeking, I don't have it updated to the right way. But your about section is really important to talk about. So for example, for me personally, I talk about, hey, I'm a founder, I'm a dreamer, I'm a gamer. I make it very personalized for somebody to have topics or things to relate to me with. If you actually go onto my LinkedIn profile and you go onto my P&G sales internship experience, it literally talks about, hey, I went into sales because I had stage fright and I forced myself to go into a customer facing role so that I can get over that fear. And after my sales internship at P&G, I was offered a full-time job or a full-time offer at P&G as an account manager. So like that's building up a story that I can talk about within my interviews. And those are the types of stories that I'm talking about. It's like, what are you passionate about? Why are you actually applying to this company? Why are you applying to this particular role? How do your passions and your skill sets overlap between, what you currently have and what the company is seeking, and like really giving purpose to, what you're trying to do and where your passions lie, I would say.
Awesome. No, thanks for that affirmation. Okay, let's get a little bit integrated. So I know you talked about like, hey, applying 20 times and it's sort of a numbers game, if you will, and persistence.
Yeah.
Do you recommend like a certain period of time, waiting time before reapplying again after being rejected? I know like some places they only allow like X amount. I feel like Salesforce has that, but any guidance
so
there?
some places do give you like, hey, we recommend that you don't apply for the next 6 months. I actually got rejected from Amazon in March 2020, and I reapplied end of April, and I did end up, and although they did also recommend, hey, wait 6 months, I applied for a fairly different role to what I was applying. So if it's the same role, follow it's usually an average timeline of 6 months. But if it's a different role, I would go for it still. Your skill set might be better aligned for a different type of role with different roles and responsibilities.
Gotcha. Okay, skipping to the Q&A real quick, and then we'll come back to the chat room. There's a question from someone in the audience saying, any advice for a linguist, talented linguist, making a midlife career change? No tech background, no impressive resume. What about, how can you make that career jump?
One, right off the bat, what I can think of is there's a lot, and especially as of right now, content writing is very in right now, especially at these tech companies, because they need people creating their content. That could be a place of overlap for somebody like you. I'm not sure what else your passions are, or what you're interested. Like, if you're maybe like, you can actually go to, like, if you're interested in selling in front of customers, you can go within sales. If you're interested on, if you're interested particularly on product, you can go into product management. If you like design, UI, UX. But based off what you just told me off the bat, an overlap that I can find is going in towards, content writing and content management. Exactly, copywriting.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay, another quick one, and then I'd love to go into like messaging again, because I think a lot of people have a hard time actually reaching out effectively. I think one question from Sadia is, where do you find Google certificates? I'm assuming you just look on the website, and
just go to
locate.
Like, if anything, just Google certificates or Google advertising certificates. If, like, for example, whatever type of certificate you're looking for, just Google it. You'll probably find it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I'd love to just jump back a little bit to messaging templates, because I think a lot of people have a hard time kind of customizing and spending a lot of time up front and coming the messages. And can we see some of the messaging templates you had pulled up again from the platform, and maybe just share like one that for sure gets a good open response rate?
I'll do a few things. So first, let's walk through do's and don'ts when reaching out to people. And then I'll actually go into my LinkedIn and show the ones that actually converted. So I'll go into my messages and we'll see what converted and what didn't. So let's say, some things that you should not do. So one thing is, don't go straight and be like, and just directly ask for a referral. So that you should never be going in and asking for a referral. Instead, asking for guidance. People love speaking. People love giving advice. People love being a mentor. Asking for guidance is a better way to go about it. And that may or may not result, or most likely would end up resulting in a referral. The other thing is relating with the person. So like, especially if you're just doing email outreach, look at their LinkedIn profile. So again, a big chunk of the way, or a big way that I was able to land these offers was using LinkedIn. So I would go onto their profile. Maybe within their about section, they talked about, they're into gaming. So that's an overlap that I have with them. I can put that in within my message, like, hey, I saw that you're also interested in gaming. What different types of games do you play? That could be like a conversation starter with the person. The third thing that you shouldn't do is not giving them enough information. So if somebody were to come to me and just be like, hey, can you find me a role? That's a lot of work for me. Instead, if you came to me and you're like, hey, this is the exact role that I'm looking for. This is the job ID. This is why I would be a good fit and I would like to transition into this role. And you give me all the information that I possibly need to give you a referral. Okay, I just have to go upload your resume and done, right? You have a tailored resume. Instead, if you go like, hey, can you edit my resume, or can you figure out which roles I would be a good fit for? That's a lot of work for me, and that kind of deters some like for somebody like me who's extremely busy. It deters me from like actually responding. So make my life as easy as possible. Provide all the information that I possibly need. Those are a few don'ts. So do's, I would say, relate with the person, ask for guidance, come prepared, and first and foremost, have a call to action. So like at the end, like whether it's you'd like to connect with them for, let's say, a coffee chat or whatever it is, have a call to action when you're reaching out to them. Now I'm going to share my screen and walk through a few templates that are really good. Yeah, I'll do that right now. I'll share my screen.
Awesome. Hey, everyone. Thanks so much for being engaged in the chat. Just we're going to look through this right now, but if you have more, I'm monitoring it. So feel free to just shout it out and we'll make sure it's addressed for the session.
Yeah. So I was going to go through my LinkedIn, but I feel like it's going to be harder to just go and find them. But basically, I have all the ones. So all the ones that I've used and were highly converting, I've organized them based on the type of follow-up that we're looking for. So one thing that a lot of people want to do, and I put this up on the top of the list, is asking for an informational interview. So like just getting, maybe that first conversation with, let's say a recruiter. So some templates that are really good. It would be like, so let's say you're reaching out to a particular recruiter, or let's say you're reaching out to, let's say, somebody who is also an alumni at your particular school. So one thing could be is like, hey, greetings, I hope you're doing great. I came across your LinkedIn profile, noticed that you're a data scientist at, let's say, Blue Chip Taco. I'm currently a software engineer and I've been thinking about making a career change. I'd love to ask you a few questions about your experience and your insights on the data science industry. Any chance you would be available? Again, that call to action. So relating with them, so let's say you're going into data science, relating with them on the data science, relating with them on like, hey, you're also a Berkeley alumni, being very clear on what you're reaching out to them. Like you don't want it to be ambiguous, and having that call to action. Hey, would you be available for a very quick phone call at a particular time? So making it very clear and direct, and saying that you're being flexible. Another way it could be is a very casual way. It could be, hey, I see from LinkedIn that you're currently working in blockchain. That's amazing. Congrats on the move. I've actually been contemplating a similar move and would love to hear about what the transition is like. Would you have 15 minutes for a cup of coffee, or let's say a virtual connect? Alternatively, and then this is actually really good, and it's something that I personally like, is alternatively, I could send over a few questions by email. So like, let's say the person doesn't want to speak over the phone, which might be the case. You can just ask questions via the message and people are usually happy to respond fairly quickly. So these are just a few. You can send your resume with your request. So it depends if the person, so there's three different types of people that you're reaching out to. You're reaching out to employees, you're reaching out to hiring managers, and you're reaching out to recruiters. When you're reaching out to recruiters, you have to be very direct with, this is the exact role. This is why I'm a good fit. Give your resume. If you're reaching out to hiring managers, and if they've made a post saying, hey, I'm hiring for this role, you can be clear and direct. If they haven't done that, then you're just trying to get in that initial conversation for guidance. Or an employee, if you're trying to get a referral, again, just getting that guidance, and within that guidance conversation or within that coffee chat that you have, that's your opportunity to walk them through your background. And if they, again, have a win-win situation with you and the employee, they make a referral, they usually get a referral bonus, right? So making sure that you're getting across like, hey, this is my background, this is why I would be a good fit for the role. I want to learn, based on your experience, what the day-to-day looks like. You learn about the day-to-day. And after you learn about the day-to-day, you're like, you know what, that's something that I'm currently doing within my job. I can see myself being a good fit. If you're open to it, would you be open to sending over a referral, right? And that's something that you would say over the coffee chat. There's other templates. So yeah, these are just a few templates over here. Let's see.
Oh yeah, can we do the one that says personalized invite? Like, let's say like what you were saying, filter on posts, hiring, account exec, like, yeah, basically that one, personalized invite. Like, how do people write one if they don't have LinkedIn Premium?
So personalized invite would be so there's a few different there's a few different variations that you have. So reaching out to a recruiter, again, these are very short. Hey, name. I read from, so this, oh, by the way, this is a really cool tip. When you go onto recruiter profiles, they usually sometimes they call out the industry or roles that they're actually recruiting for. So it actually wouldn't make sense. So for example, if you're going into sales and the recruiter has, they're recruiting for software engineering, it's kind of useless to reach out to that particular recruiter. Instead, if you find recruiters who are hiring for sales and in their profile, they say, and it's usually within their experience section where they go like what type of vertical they're hiring for. Some people might be like, I hire for SDRs, or I hire for AEs, or I hire for product managers. That's where you can say, hey, I saw that on your profile that you recruit for these particular types of roles. I'm currently doing this role at my company. I wanted to connect with you in case you think my profile might be a good fit for current or future roles. So this is current or future meaning like if you don't know the role. I want to see if there's one with so it's not here. So another one would be if there's an employee or a hiring manager. I noticed that we're both in the same industry. So we're both in the tech industry and we're passionate about, let's say, gaming. I'd love to connect and learn more about your experience at, Google. Would you be open to chat this Thursday at this time? Another really good way is alumni outreach. So like, hey, if you are coming from the same school, people tend to help you a lot more. So one thing you can do on LinkedIn is you can filter by alumni. Sorry, Lisa, were you going to say something?
No, I was just reading the personal one about I'm a runner and I'd love to sprint towards.
That's actually that's a real one that's actually from my friend. So she currently works at Shopify, and she sent me that one that worked out for her.
Yeah.
And she's a runner, and that's more of a personalized one.
Yeah, no, I mean, I thought it was great. I just chuckled because I'm a runner too. And I'm like, never thought to do that. I mean, it's been a while since I've job seek, but might steal that one.
Yeah, for sure. And then there's like an open network. Like if you're not job searching and you just actually want to connect with people more and more, then there's like an open network outreach one. Say, hey, we're both in the same industry and we're both, passionate about blah. Would love to connect and be part of your network. Thanks.
Yeah. And then just real quick, I just want to add, like, you don't have to start doing this when you're looking for a job. Like if you're employed right now, you could even just, like you said, connect with people that, are also doing what you like, or maybe in a role that you want to at some point apply for, and just start building, like laying the seeds for that. And then it's not so much like the first time you're reaching out to someone, you're asking them for a favor or kind of a hard ask, and they don't really know you, so to speak. Yeah, I don't know. Let's see.
Yeah, let me see. There's actually
I feel like you had something on that, but yeah, go ahead.
There's one more that I wanted to share. Just give me a second. Where is it? Sorry, was there one that you wanted to see here, or one more on the same list that we were just taking a look at for personalized invites?
No, the personalized one was the biggest one because people have hard time, and I guess it's more just like about the outreach, but I was gonna say you have good follow-up ones too. Reaching out for a job. Maybe did you do reaching out for a job yet? Because I guess maybe they could send it to recruiters, hiring managers, cold email.
Oh yeah, so this is actually a really, really good one. So these are great templates. So one is seeking guidance, which these are actually the ones that I use. So the example below is one that's been working for me. So it's like, hey, hope everything is going well, given everything that's going on. I saw your strong experience, as a senior director at Microsoft, and thought that I would reach out to you for guidance. I also noticed that we were both passionate about mutual interests. That's awesome. Little background about myself. I currently work at Procter & Gamble as an account manager. I'm looking to translate my current experience and tackle a role at your company. It would be great to hop on a call and see what your day-to-day looks like to see if this would be a good fit for my experience. And then this is exactly what I put, like literally what I was using, highly converting message. So again, little background about myself. I'm looking to transition for an AE role, and I ended up getting an interview with this person. So he was actually a hiring manager that I reached out to. They didn't have a role at the time, but they did have a role eventually. So that's hiring manager method. Another is reaching out to an alumni. So there's a separate template there. Hi, my name is, so your name. I'm also a senior. I'm a senior at NYU. I came across your name on our alumni database. I hope you're doing great. I'm reaching out because of XYZ. So why you're reaching out, why you're a good fit, and what your call to action. More like, hey, I would like to get on a 10 to 15 minute call. Template number 3, cold outreach to employees at target company. So this is if you're not connected to them and maybe you want to send an in-mail. Some people do have free. So if they have LinkedIn Premium, sometimes they have free in-mail. So like interested in Microsoft or Blue Chip Talk or whatever it is, very short and sweet. I hope this message finds you well. I've been with, Procter & Gamble for a few years now as a software engineer, and I've just started looking for a new opportunity. I've been following Blue Chip for some time, and there's a few roles I've come across that seem like a great fit. I'd love to chat with you to get a better idea of the company and the work that you're doing. So like pretty much learning about what the day-to-day is like, to be like, hey, you know what, this is something that I see myself doing. Now, let's say we do the LinkedIn golden hack method, right? So this is like messaging an employee for a role you already know exactly what you want. So it's a pleasure connecting. I saw your current role at this company. I'd like to reach out to you for guidance. I also noticed that we're both, again, finding that mutual interest. I saw the following post for this company. So it's usually like if you're let's say that role is a software engineering role, the person you're reaching out to is most likely within software engineering, or would most likely be either an employee or a hiring manager for that particular role. So you're just trying to get your initial foot through the door. So I literally said, hey, can you help me get my foot through the door to speaking to the hiring manager or recruiter for initial screening? I believe I'd be a great fit given, why you'd be a good fit. I'd love to translate my current experience in the hopes of joining company, and would love to get would appreciate any help I can get. So again, you're getting more guidance and learning about the day-to-day. The more you're able to learn about the day-to-day, let's say you do end up getting an interview. It's like in the interview, you can say, hey, yeah, I spoke to X, Y, and Z, and they talked about their day-to-day. It shows that you made that initiative. It shows that you have been networking and already talked to existing employees at the company and found like, hey, the day-to-day to match what you're looking to target. So this is an example, a real life example that was used. Another template for messaging a recruiter specifically, and like how you can be clear and concise.
No, I appreciate that. I think this is just, like you said, kind of a good blueprint for like how to just go about taking that first step to outreach. So a couple questions for you. What's been the kind of response rate on these emails? Would you say like all the templates that are here have had high conversion rates, or is it just
the templates here? The templates here have been like readjusted several times. And these are probably my most highly converting ones, alongside other FANG people or FANG members who were, or for those who don't know, FANG stands for Facebook, Amazon, Apple, Netflix, Google. So yeah, other FANG members have also assisted in like their outreach messages, and we've all kind of worked on it together to make like these final templates that we would expect or we would want to hear. So if I were to just talk about my personal experience, I would say 1 in 3 or 1 in 4 people were responding back, which is fairly good. I would say, given how much you're reaching out, and they're probably getting a lot of other messages. But again, making the other person's life as easy as possible, being very, very clear is probably the best way to get a response.
Awesome. And then I know there's a couple folks that were wondering, and I think you covered it earlier. So to gain access to the templates, you join Tech and Chill, but it would be under the paid subscription that you'd find these templates, right?
Yes.
Okay. So just for those, and it's something where you just sign up, right? Or do you need like an invite to join?
You sign up, and then you basically, there is an approval process that happens by somebody else, but everybody usually gets approved within an hour.
Got it. Okay. Also, Sadia, which sorry if I'm butchering the name. If the person you reach out to doesn't want to help you, or maybe you just don't get a response, which I hear a lot, what else can candidates do? Is it weird to message other people in the same department? What are your thoughts there?
If they don't respond, it's not weird at all to message other people within the same department. But you can also just follow up with them, right? So like there's a lot of times where like something just might fall through the cracks. So give them the benefit of the doubt, doing a very simple follow-up message. And again, let's say you're following up after not getting a response. So so a very quick template could be like, hey, just following up. I know how busy you are, just resending in case it fell through the cracks, right? So it's very simple. It's like very subtle. Just following up, acknowledging that the person is busy, totally understand, or giving an alternative route, like, hey, if you're not open to a call, maybe can I ask a few questions here just through chat, right? So that could be a way to open it up. So there's a few templates over here on that as well.
Okay, we have an attendee that wanted to ask about tech specific messaging. So what do you recommend as an intro or a message if you're not in tech and want to break in?
So that was actually what I was doing. So like, for example, I talked about, hey, so when I was early on back in early March 2020, when I was looking to switch out of P&G, I was saying, hey, I'd like to translate my current CPG sales experience in the world of tech because I'm super passionate about the tech industry. And that's like my entryway of like, this is my existing background. I can translate this existing background in the world of tech. And usually almost any role that you have in the past, there's some, if you give me any example of what you're doing right now, I can probably figure out a way of how that overlaps within the world of tech. Even like whatever it may be can overlap in one way or another in the world of tech, in both technical and non-technical roles.
Gotcha. So another curveball to that is, what about someone coming from the film industry or event production? How would you kind of gear that?
Yeah, so there's a lot of tech. So Netflix is, for example, a tech company within that exact field. Even working at Amazon, we literally have a Prime Video on our end. So we have a lot of people within the filmmaking industry. They have completely different types of jobs and job descriptions that tailor specifically to people like you coming from that background. So these tech companies, they do have, even for, let's say, film, Apple has their Apple TV, and there's Amazon, there's Netflix, there's Hulu. There's a lot of these other types of tech companies that work within those spaces. So your experience for at like a Hulu would be really, really good, and something that they would consider as, you know what, this person, although they might not have a technical background, they do come from a space that understands our industry and understands our products and understands our consumers better than somebody who maybe comes from just a technical background without that experience.
Yeah, awesome. Any insight for folks that are returning to work after 5 years out of the workforce, caring for family?
Not, I haven't necessarily dealt with many people in that regards, but if I were to I would need like a bit more information on like, are you looking to are you looking to switch industries? Are you looking to get back into what you were doing before? I would need a bit more context to help on that front.
And I'll provide some insight. So at Albert's List, we get a lot of folks that, maybe they need to take care of elderly or their family or whatnot. So then they leave their workforce temporarily. And I know Facebook and Apple have some folks that work as program managers for those roles. It's like their return to work program. So it's like a requirement that those roles slotted in the tech companies have to give those roles to people that are coming from being out of the workforce for a minimum of 2 years.
That's true.
So I guess my insight for the anonymous attendee that's asking that is to, there's a lot of tech companies that do that. I know for sure Facebook and Apple does it. So if you'd like, I'll put my LinkedIn in the chat and you can reach out to me and I'm happy to connect you to one of those PMs. But it's just like what Jaza was saying, it would be no different than what he shared here. It's like, if you were an account executive before you left the workforce, then it's just a matter of kind of explaining that
Being
you
able to
left the
explain the gap.
workforce. Yeah, you left the workforce caring for family, but you're still, I mean, you still have all the skill sets and experience from before. No one can take that from you. So,
Yeah.
okay.
And there's a lot, sorry,
Like,
just one more thing. Like a lot of these companies do have a DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives that are going, like all these big tech companies, they have those quotas to meet for people that are in those scenarios as well. So there is an active effort across these companies to take those types of situations into consideration.
Awesome. Another question is, do you need an MBA to break into tech?
Do you need it? So I don't have an MBA, but so do you need, oh, this is a very good question. I might have a biased opinion to this. So I don't have an MBA. So, okay, this is the answer. The answer to this question is an MBA is really useful for those who also don't, let's say, have a network. So that's where you gain a network, within your MBA, you get that status and that certification. It's usually for those who aren't able to access or have, let's say, a network at their fingertips. One route is doing an MBA. Another route is building your own personal brand, which is a lot more riskier, but for example, in my scenario, it did end up working out where I started connecting on LinkedIn from scratch and used LinkedIn as my way of connecting with others within the industry that I wanted, learning about their day-to-day so I can be best positioned for the roles that I'm targeting. So I would say the answer is maybe, yes and no. MBA could be more beneficial, but I would prioritize experience first over an MBA personally. And again, that's a very biased opinion, by the way. I have multiple arguments with my father who says I should do an MBA.
Yeah, just be a couple hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt. In that process.
And that too.
Just going back a little bit, I know we covered return to work and then leaving the workforce. What's your take on explaining a gap in your resume?
Explaining a gap within your the summary. So usually I don't advocate for a summary section within your resume. However, there's two different ways you can do it. One is sometimes when you're submitting an application, it goes like any additional information, and that's usually an opportunity that I use or that I would use to explain, let's say, a gap or anything of that sort, and have a good reason behind it. The second place would be so cover letters are optional. That's a very good opportunity for you to use a cover letter to explain a gap. And then thirdly, let's say if you're not going to do either of those, having a very short summary section, just explaining like, hey, I was on leave for the last 2 years. Just one line. I was on leave for the last 2 years to help take care of somebody, and I'm getting back into the workforce. So like having that within your summary section within your resume. Other than that, unless you're explaining something outrageous on your resume or something completely out of the blue, do not have a summary section on your resume. Utilize the space to really show the impact that you're making with your current experience.
Okay. Gotcha.
And I'm more than happy to walk through an ATS friendly resume within like a few minutes if needed.
Okay, I got a couple more questions, but let's do that first. ATS, because I know that's kind of a topic of interest. Like people are always trying to figure out, like, do I put a picture on my resume? Do I not? Like, what's a nice format? So let's do it.
So let's do that very quickly, because this is probably, oh shoot, I just X'd out of it. Are you able to still see my screen?
I see it.
All right, awesome. So this, for example, is an ATS friendly resume. And let me explain to you what ATS friendly really even means. So basically, these big companies and a lot of like mid to large size companies, they process your resume and it spits out, like, it basically takes keywords from your resume. It takes keywords from your resume and like the formatting and all that, and it spits it out in, let's say, like a Word file, for example, and uses key indicators on your roles and your experience points and so on and so forth. Here are a few things that you shouldn't do on your resume. You shouldn't have any pictures on your resume if you're applying to any of these tech companies. These resumes will convert a lot more. It's right here. So within my ATS friendly resume, which, by the way, this has been created by several hiring managers and recruiters across top 10 companies and revised with. So don't have pictures or designs or columns, different fonts, tables. Don't go less than 10 point font size. And yeah, so no designs recommended on an ATS friendly resume. The other thing is, the reason I wouldn't do columns is because when it does end up getting parsed on the other side, it might read two separate paragraphs as like the same line, and that might screw up what they end up seeing ultimately once your resume does get parsed. Yeah, so this particular resume has a good font size. It has good spacing between the bullet points. It has a good it has a black font color. It doesn't have columns. It doesn't have any designs, and it's a very simple resume that gets the job done. It gets across like the skills and certifications that you have. But yeah, this is an example of an ATS friendly resume.
Gotcha. And then for folks that want to access that, where can they find that? Is it just also on Tech and Chill, or where?
It is also on Tech and Chill, yes. However, more than happy to send it over.
Okay, awesome. We'll be talking after. Question for you. Did you use a cover letter when applying for tech companies?
I did. So you should, at least for me, I only put in a cover letter if it said mandatory. Other than that, I did not ever use a cover letter.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. And then circling back to Alexandra, what's the best way to reach on LinkedIn if you don't have premium and you don't have free messages? Which I think, Sandra, I don't know if you saw, but he covered it a little bit earlier, which is kind of the personalized intro message when you send the connection request. I think you said that's the one that I remember. Just sending a personalized intro. I don't know if there's another one that you.
So there's a personalized intro. There's also a bunch of other ways of like just growing your LinkedIn profile. So one thing could be, so you have a limit of 100 connections you can make per week. So the one thing that I recommend is, first and foremost, connect with everybody that you possibly know to start off. So like if you don't have 500 connections on LinkedIn, so usually if you go into somebody's LinkedIn profile, it usually says 500 plus connections if you have more than 500 connections. And if you have less, it literally says the number like 437, for example. So the first goal should be is try to get above 500 connections. One way to do that is connect with everybody that you possibly know, then connect with people that you've worked with, you're currently working with, or you've worked with in the past. Connect with people within your school or classmates and students that you've also worked with, and then start connecting with people within the industries and roles that you're interested in, and people that you find interesting, or you read their bio and you're like, you know what, that's somebody that I would like to connect with. Just, you have 100 per week. You can use it wisely, and those usually can turn into opportunities. Like once they accept your connection request, like for example, there's been a lot of people that I've reached back out to that maybe I haven't talked to in a very long time. It's like, hey, we're connected. One, I can reach out to them for free, and two, but it's a good way to be like, hey, we've been connected for some time, and then go in with your ask.
Mm-hmm. I know this comes a lot, is the sense of skills. Is it important to get like a lot of people to endorse you? How does that play into a factor for search results?
So let me actually, this is really good with what we're talking about right now. So I'm going to show you what a recruiter actually sees when they're looking at your profile on their recruiter portal. Are you able here? I'm going to zoom in. So this is what a recruiter sees. A recruiter sees job title, which should definitely be within your headline. When you're on your LinkedIn profile, there should be a place where you can select that you're open to work and choose particular locations. So these recruiters, they're filtering by locations. You can add up to 5 locations, and they are also filtering by skills. So what I would do is I would maybe, there's 2 ways to go about it. I think when you go onto a job description on LinkedIn, when you scroll down and you look at the key, let's say, skill sets that are required, take a look at what usually pops up when you are browsing around for targeted roles, and include those within your LinkedIn profile. But I would say the skills section is probably the lowest priority amongst what you end up getting searched for. So for example, having your job title, let's say in your experience section, and also having it within your headline and in your about section is more priority than having, let's say, a particular skill set that they're looking for. Another thing is, and this is something that I do end up talking about within the LinkedIn optimization module, is using your headline for both the role title, let me just show you. So, where's LinkedIn? Okay, awesome. So for headline, for example, the formula for the headline is current role at company/university, keyword 1, keyword 2, keyword 3, and a little tiny sales pitch. And the reason it's like that is because these keywords can also be the skills that you're targeting as well. So for example, if let's say I'm within sales, one thing I could say is one of the keywords could be sales. Another thing could be, let's say, customer success is another sales keyword. And then it could be like, hey, managed $100 million worth of business, for example, as my little tiny pitch for myself. So an example here is account executive at Amazon, digital advertising, customer success, sales, and driving growth with a $100 million book of business. And another example for university students is like software engineering intern at Cisco, and then technical skills like front end, React, HTML, award-winning student leader. Maybe somebody who doesn't have experience. Marketing student at university, digital marketing, social media, varsity athlete with a 3.8 GPA. These are all great ways for you to use your headline, especially for searchability with recruiters. There's the headline, there's the experience section where you should also include those keywords. So like making sure you have the keywords within your experiences. And then, yes, there's also the skill section. So getting endorsed, I would say, is not that important, but just having it on your profile is. It's low tier priority.
Gotcha. And I know in the chat, Tammy has a question. It's, what are best practices when trying to attract recruiters to reach out or connect with you?
Yeah, so the best way would be, again, one is having your full LinkedIn profile optimized. So we just talked through headline. There's a bunch, so like from top to bottom, you have your header and your cover photo, making sure that you're telling that story. So for example, if I were to go into header and cover photo, look, these are some solid examples. So that friend that I mentioned earlier, Christian, he mentions his stack, like his technical stack, like he's good at Excel, he's good at Tableau, and so on and so forth. He calls out business intelligence engineer in his banner. So like you can create a very quick banner within a few minutes on canva.com for free, by the way. So you can create a header to tell your story, really give across your technical skills, making sure that your profile photo is, so these are some examples, candid examples of profile photos. Also walks through ways that you can some ways that you can, let's say, remove the background and change it within the module as well. We've got job preferences that I was talking about, the open to work feature. So it looks like this. You can put a pencil and make sure that you're open to work. That's usually the biggest way that recruiters can see you. Headline, about section, and so on and so forth. I would say, again, optimizing it. You're optimizing your headline, optimizing your about section, making sure that you're putting your portfolio within the featured section, making sure that your experience calls out the right technical skills, but also calls out your story. You have the education. And then again, it's usually high priority from the top to bottom.
Gotcha.
I know we're trying to cover a lot in this session, so that's why I'm just kind of skimming through it.
Yeah, no, these are all good. It's more like, okay, everybody in this session has a lot of homework tonight. Just
for sure.
For those that are wanting to do like an overview. Someone in the chat or someone in the Q&A said, but you said no photo. So he just meant no photo for the resume. The resume.
No photos on your resume. Yeah.
Yeah, just the bullet points, action oriented, etc. There's kind of a certain way to go about it, but like this for LinkedIn, it's like,
LinkedIn.
Hey, if you get a banner, if you get a picture, use it to your advantage for your personal brand.
yeah, no matter what, your LinkedIn is like your selling portfolio. Like no matter what, you end up becoming a salesperson, whether you like it or not, when you're on LinkedIn, because you're always selling yourself either as a software engineer or product manager, and positioning and using your LinkedIn for positioning is one of the best ways.
Oh, someone said, wasn't Christian's photo and border on his resume? No, I think
No,
just
it was
point for clarification, it was on his LinkedIn profile, right?
LinkedIn profile. Yes, it was not on his resume.
All right.
That was just a LinkedIn banner that I showed earlier. So yeah, this is a LinkedIn header at the top of your LinkedIn profile. So if I were to go to my profile up over here.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. Hey, I'd love to kind of pivot into that. So I know some people are wary of video, and I saw that you created kind of a quick one. I think a while back people were allowing you to like the audio pronouncing the way you pronounce a name, etc. Like, what's your tips on creating sort of a captivating LinkedIn video, so to speak?
Oh, for sure. So you mentioned two really cool things. So one thing is the pronunciation feature. So a lot of people get my name wrong. So people usually call me Jazib. So my name is Jazib. So I use my pronunciation feature to not only correct people on my pronunciation, but I go like, hey everybody, my name is Jazib. If you're interested in talking about tech, or if you're interested in learning about how to break into tech, feel free to give me a follow. So it's like I have that call to action. So you have like 10 to 15 seconds to talk a little bit about yourself and kind of pitch yourself through the pronunciation feature, which, by the way, you can only do on your mobile phone. Then we have LinkedIn cover stories, another great way for you to stand out. So I have a little funny skit on my LinkedIn cover photo. So let's see if I can even view it on my laptop. So it's just a little funny video that I did. I mean, if I was job seeking, I wouldn't necessarily utilize that. That's just because I'm not job seeking anymore that I have that there. But that is a great opportunity to be like, hey, I'm currently looking for this role. These are the skill sets that I have. And it's, again, a 10-second video. You're showing yourself. It's an opportunity for you to show your soft skills, like your confidence and your communication skills, through the form of video or through the form of audio.
Awesome. And speaking of video, what are your thoughts on like, do you think it's worth it if you're trying to break into tech, getting into like TikTok resumes or any of those kind of newer, I don't know, like funkier ways of applying?
Frankly, I personally haven't done it, so I can't really talk through it. So I would be super excited to see how that ends up playing out. I do know. So something that I'm actually also working on is bringing video to resume. So for example, it's something that's not launching yet, but basically I'm calling it the first round, where instead of somebody applying to, let's say, 50 different companies, a person just does one first round interview that asks the basic questions like, tell me about yourself, or why are you interested within this role and in this industry, or these types of companies, and simply showing those to a bunch of recruiters rather than the person going out and applying to 100 companies. So I think that is the trend in the future of recruiting and recruitment, is because of virtual interviews. Like, people are going to start having their own personal video that walks through. And again, that's a creative way to reach out to somebody. Like, maybe instead of just sending a message, like if you want to be really, really creative, make a tailored video. Like, if somebody sent me a video addressing me and being like, hey, I'm just trying this out, I thought this would be super cool. My name is Jazib. I'm currently working within sales. This is the background that I have. I saw that you're hiring for this role. I would love to have an opportunity to have that initial screening round. If somebody sent me a video of that, I would definitely give them a chance. That's a very unique way to stand out.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. I mean, we could spend like another 2 hours on like LinkedIn. Yeah. Does the audience have any like specific questions? I know one of the biggest ones was like, once we use the templates, we reach out to the recruiter and the hiring manager. What if we don't get a response back? Are there other creative outreaches that you can suggest?
Yeah, I think it would just be the same thing. Again, the follow-up messages. I think the one thing to realize and this is something that I should have actually let off with, is when you're approaching your job search, understand that job seeking is like a funnel. So when starting at the very top of the funnel, that's the research phase. Finding roles that you're actually qualified for, not overqualified for, not underqualified for. Then the next step is so after research is networking. So connecting with people within the roles that you want so that they can maybe guide you on the day-to-day. You can learn about, the company culture and the role and see if you would actually be a good fit. The next step is, okay, now that you know which roles you'd actually be a good fit for, you either get a referral through the networking session, but if not, then it's the resume. So making sure that you're positioning yourself the best way possible through your resume in hopes of landing an interview. Once you land an interview, maybe the people that you've networked with, they can do a mock interview with you. Doing mock interviews, using Glassdoor to find the exact interview questions that you're gonna expect. And seeing, doing research on what best practice answers would be like, and those mock interviews really help on the interviewing side. Then after interviews, hopefully you land the offer. If you don't, then you're basically restarting that cycle. Yeah, overall, I would say, again, if let's say you go through that process, you don't end up getting a response, you do the follow-ups and you don't end up getting a response, move on to the next role, move on to the next opportunity, continue networking. Just to put it into perspective for everybody here, I spent 90 days, around 4 to 6 hours per day for 90 days straight to finally end up at a company that I really want to work at. So it took a lot of effort. It took a lot of time, but it ultimately ended up working out.
Gotcha. And that we have an anonymous question that kind of ties into that is just, what percentage of interviews have you gotten by just applying online to the job board without a referral? Like, how did you structure that 4 to 6 hours work? Is it all like about warm referrals? Like, do you even apply for a job without one? Like, what does that process look like?
This is what the process should look like. So let's say, what should your time commitment even look like? This is what I would suggest is spending around 10 to 20 hours per week on your job search, sending applications out 25 to 50 times. So 25 to 50 applications per week. And then also reaching out to like 15 to 30 employees per week as well, either asking for guidance or referrals or informational, or guidance specifically, or informational interviews. Now, in terms of conversions, so when I first started applying, it was without an ATS friendly resume, which I wasn't getting much success with. Near the end of my job search, my ATS friendly resume was getting a lot of traction. So I would say out of every 10 places I reached out to, I got like 3 calls or messages back. Pretty good out of for what I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
So that was one, but most of all my interviews came through the LinkedIn golden hack that I mentioned of doing the post method.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. Let's see, Q&A. Okay. The last thing is, I know we talk a lot about this on LinkedIn and really just building a robust profile. And one of the recommendations is, if you're going to be on the platform, it's a good idea to post daily. What do you recommend are ways that job seekers can stay motivated, like posting daily? How do you manage your time there? Like growing your network? Exactly.
Yeah. So basically for growing my network, and so I had to, so once I landed Amazon, at that time I had around 7,000 connections at that point, which again, I came coming from nothing, which was awesome. And I know it sounds like a number game, but it ultimately ended up being something that worked in my favor. After I landed Amazon, I was like, you know what? I'm going to continue growing up my LinkedIn. So there's a few ways to go about it. One is just growing your network strategically. So like, as I mentioned earlier, adding everybody everybody that you've worked with, and then maybe just making sure that you're sending out those 100 connections per week. Now, that's one route of doing it. Another way is obviously optimizing your LinkedIn profile. That's something that we've talked about. But another way is posting content. So only 1% of LinkedIn users actually post content. So there's different types of content that you can be posting. And somebody like me, so I've been doing startups I've done around 4 to 5 startups over the last 6-7 years. So I had a lot of entrepreneurial content that I was putting out. So LinkedIn ended up becoming like my personal little diary where I can share where I can share my thoughts. I can do a poll. I can share any my life milestones. Like, hey, I got into Amazon. Rejection stories. Even when I was a job seeker and I was getting rejected, rejection stories did really well in terms of content. So you can post about content. Another really good way of building meaningful relationships on LinkedIn is by engaging with others. So people who continue to engage with me on LinkedIn, I actually remember their names, and like I've actually pulled through to help them land jobs simply because they gave me their time and their engagement when they didn't really need to. So I remember that. So when you're on LinkedIn, engage with other people consistently. If they're like, always give before you take, I would say. So that's one way of giving, is like engaging with somebody's content consistently. And I'm seeing a question of like joining LinkedIn groups. Yeah, joining LinkedIn groups and then being like, hey, we're a part of the same group. And then going in with like, hey, we're a part of the same group. Would love to hear about how you broke into tech, or how what your experience is like working at Google or whatever it is. So engaging.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, you go ahead. You good. Sorry, I just back and track to some of the questions. So Helen said she wanted to know a little bit more about your journey. So did you have a backup offer if you didn't get hired by Amazon? And then you said, there's sort of the persistence mantra of you when you're applying, but what if you just weren't hired? Like, could you share a little bit more personal insight there?
So when I was applying to Amazon, I had an offer right before Amazon. And actually, because of that, my entire Amazonian interviewing experience lasted 4 days, because I had another offer that was expiring. I had 4 days left. So I did have a backup offer on that Amazon offer. But when I had that previous offer right before Amazon, I didn't have any backup. In fact, on April 5th, and I call it my doomsday, on April 5th of 2020 is when I actually got rejected from both Google and Facebook on the same day. When I thought I actually landed both roles at both of those companies, and had nothing else within the pipeline. So I've already spent 60 days spending a lot of work landing all these interviews, going for very ambitious roles that were possibly out of my scope. But April 5th, after like 60 days of doing that, got rejected from Google and Facebook, had nothing within the pipeline, had to restart, then got into stages with Tesla, and then Amazon, and so on and so forth. So I would say, again, there's so many different ways to go about it.
Highs and lows.
Highs and lows.
I love that. Kristen wanted to ask, so you had mentioned asking for guidance, and she was curious, like, do you have any specific examples of asks? Like, how do you go about maybe seeking out a mentor? Like, what does that look like?
So the way I would go about it is I would find people that I would like to connect to. And usually these people are within the roles that I'm targeting. Or you think of it in the way of like, so for example, sometimes I was targeting directors because, and again, this is more of a strategic ploy, but directors are usually the hiring managers, and they have a lot more experience. So, but when you're reaching out to a director, you also have to keep in mind that they don't have a lot of time. So when I reached out to, let's say, Marcus, who was a Microsoft director, I made it extremely clear on like, hey, I see you have like a wealth of knowledge, and like I'm inspired by your wealth of knowledge. You were at Microsoft for 8 years. You did, X, Y, and Z for the last 10 years. I would love to have a conversation where I learn more about, what you do, what brought you, what was your career, what was your journey to get to where you are today. So I can see if, that's a route that I would like to take. So when you're always putting it as like they're giving you guidance and they're going to be there to give you advice, people usually tend to go for that. So if somebody came to me and said that, I'd be more likely to be like, hey, this is what I did and what helped me. It might be able to help you. And that's kind of what I'm trying to do here today as well, of walking through things that worked for me. So that was one example that worked really well. The other example is just for other employees. It would just be like, hey, this is my current background. I'm looking to get into this role. I'd like to learn what you do on a day-to-day basis to see if it would even be a good fit. So that's just like, hey, so this person's coming to me and they just want to know what I do on a day-to-day basis. And usually when you get into that conversation with that person, it's like they talked about themselves and like, how they're got into that role and what they're doing. And through that, you go like, oh, so let's say they're using Tableau and that's a skill set that you have. Oh, I currently use Tableau with my current role at P&G. I think I'd be a pretty good fit for that role. And then that's your opportunity to be like, hey, if you like based on, and then give them your background of like, hey, this is my background. I actually think I would be a good fit, especially after what you mentioned based on what you do on a day-to-day basis and what your goals are and what your KPIs are within the role. Would you mind giving a referral, given my experience? And it'll be yes or no. They might not be comfortable. That's completely fine. Don't push on that. But most often than not, when after you're already that far, you do end up getting a referral at that point.
Awesome. And then just one last one before we close out. We have an anonymous ask. I know you talked a little bit before about just online courses. Is there any ones that stand out that you recommend? I know there was another one where someone had asked in digital advertising, is there any low cost or free ones that you can kind of shout out?
Amazon, Facebook, and Google have free advertising certifications. So, and each course or whatever, or each certification takes like 1 to 2 hours. So that's for advertising specifically. Beyond that, I'm not somebody who's really done like a boot camp, but I have, based on a few of my friends and what they've done to break into tech, I've heard that boot camps are absolutely amazing. I wouldn't be able to recommend one off the top of my head, but I've heard great things for, and I know somebody's mentioning for cybersecurity. Yeah, so the cybersecurity certifications, data science certifications. I heard a lot of people are having a lot of great success with Coursera. If you get a certification for Coursera based on, let's say if you're trying to go into data science and you get a Tableau certification, or you finish a course on Tableau, that's something that can be used within your resume. It could help within your keywords on your resume, keywords on your LinkedIn profile, ultimately helping you pass the ATS systems. Ultimately, something to talk about within your interviews, like, hey, I learned these concepts and so on and so forth.
Gotcha. Okay, last one of, okay, just a couple more. I know one thing that Tam is asking about is when you're asking for advice or just job sharing or referrals, how do you, I guess, return the favor or add value for them in return? If you're the one asking.
So if you're the one, so it depends. So for example, when I actually reach out to, like if I'm reaching out to recruiters, so now that I have a pretty good LinkedIn presence, when I reach out, before I even go for an ask, I usually be like, hey, let me know if my network can be of any assistance to you. So I can make a post if you're hiring for a role, and that will get some good reach. So like wherever you can give, I would say in any way or form is a good starting point. And I feel like, as I mentioned before, like engage, like do the intangibles, like engaging with their posts. If there's somebody that posts on LinkedIn, you can do some intangibles. Oh, it's right here. So engaging with like, liking their posts or commenting, creating dialogue, consistently engaging. That's another way you can give back. Another really good tip is always keep, if somebody, let's say, gave you a referral, always keep them engaged on how the process is going. So like every time I give somebody a referral, I'm super curious on like, oh, did they end up getting the role? What's the process? Like if you get a first round interview, let me know. If you get a second round interview, let me know. If you get an offer, let me know. So like keeping me engaged on that front. If you don't get it, also let me know. Like that's also a way of continuing the engagement.
Gotcha. Any recs for product management course recs?
Product management course, not off the top of my head. I do know right now Google is hiring for an APM program. It is like a ramp up product manager program. So Google is hiring for an APM program. Google is also hiring for a bold program. It's not necessarily for product management, but that's another program that they're currently hiring for. It's like they put you through like this, I believe, 4 to 8 months, 4 or 8 months program, and then you, let's say, turn into a product manager or a junior product manager or so on and so on and so forth. So like there are things out there. I believe Facebook also has an APM or an associate product manager program that they have as well. So there's those, but yeah, nothing else off the top of my head.
Gotcha. Hey, I want to be respectful of everybody's time. So I'm actually going to go ahead and close out the session, but thank you so much for, all those nuggets of value, just being super open about your own journey as well. And hope everyone in the audience got a lot out of our conversation with Jazib. I'm going to go ahead and put his link and my link in LinkedIn. If you have any follow-up questions in terms of accessing the video, I know a bunch of people were asking about the recording as well as how to get in contact with him. I'm going to drop the links in the chat. Feel free to connect with us, and we'll make sure that everybody gets all the resources that was referenced.
I hope that was
Thanks so much.
helpful, and feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn.
Yep. Albert, anything else before I close it out?
No, nothing else. Just wanted to drop a link into the chat for upcoming events and thank everyone for joining us tonight. I'll let you close it out, Lisa.
That was it. Wealth of knowledge. I hope everyone goes on LinkedIn and I don't know, like basically he went over 20 tips. So I'm expecting to see all of that stat tomorrow, right? Anyhow.
Hey, if people post something on LinkedIn, I'll be happy to engage. That could be your first post. Like, hey, you were a part of this. That's something that you can also do. I'd be happy to engage on that as well.
Sure. I'll connect with you after and we'll make sure to get this info to everybody. Thanks so much and have a good rest of your evening. Thanks so much.
All right.
Thanks,
take care,
everybody.
everybody.
Bye.